We've got a wild show recapping a wild weekend of football and racing, as well as previewing, hopefully, a wildly entertaining weekend ahead. I'm Caden Sturgis, this is Chattahoochee Sports Talk. Let's get this show on the road, talking about the Georgia Bulldogs going into Knoxville and defeating the Tennessee Volunteers by the skin of their teeth by, 15 feet on a field goal? We'll get into it further. So let's start right away with the first quarter of this one, where Tennessee pounced onto Georgia. And watching this game, I had the same feeling that I had watching Georgia play Bama last year, and the way that Jalen Milroe and Ryan Williams just absolutely pounced on a Georgia team that was not really tested up until that point. But that entire Georgia-Bama game from last year, as crazy and as good as it was, that whole story played out in the first half of this one. So, Georgia down 21-7, cannot stop Tennessee's offense to save its life. That's credit to Joey Aguilar, credit to Brazel, just absolutely tearing up a young secondary for Georgia. Well, Kirby says, well, hold my beer, watch this. And Georgia, in the span of the rest of the half, so about a quarter and a half at that point, just decides, we're going to take over this game. And Georgia is one of the only teams right now that has shown me that they're capable of doing that. And they've shown me time and time again under Kirby Smart that they're never truly out of a game. They can come back. They're never, even if you put them flat on the mat, there's a chance that that Bulldog is going to get up and is going to be very, very angry when it gets a hold of you again. And that just is what happened here in the first half of this one. So, Georgia scores 20 unanswered after going down 21-7. And then we have to talk about Tennessee, because Tennessee, in the recent history of this series, has taken leads on Georgia in the first quarter, early in the first half. And they've never been able to hold them, and they've never been able to sustain them. Of course, this is the 9th win in a row for the Bulldogs in this series. But that doesn't necessarily tell the full story. Tennessee has had their way on those scripted drives against Georgia in the past. Heupel has owned Smart in that sense, but Smart has been able to adjust early or later after that. So, as a Tennessee fan, I imagine you were thinking anything but, oh my goodness, here we go again. It's this same script for the last 5 or 6 years that we've seen in this series. Tennessee gets up, and then Georgia comes roaring back, and Tennessee never feels in control again. And that's not what happened. Credit to Joey Aguilar. Credit to the entire Tennessee team. They were square. They got put down on the mat. And they got back up and delivered Georgia a right hook right across the jaw. And that's when this game got really fun, because I was not comfortable as a Georgia fan. I thought going into halftime, yeah, sure, Georgia's going to win this game. I have no doubt in my mind. They have the momentum. I've seen this song and dance so many times. Kirby is going to get his guys right at halftime. They're going to come back out here. They're going to stomp the just ugly, ugly orange off of those Tennessee jerseys. They're going to run it all the way home, and we can celebrate. And that's not what happened. So, to really get a feel for how good this game was, we have to look at the fourth quarter. So, Tennessee goes into the fourth quarter with a lead. And that is because Chris Brazel made one of the most unbelievable catches you will ever see. Completely mossed his defender in every sense of the word, and runs it in for a touchdown. So, Tennessee comes into the fourth quarter with a lead. And that is something that I think that every Tennessee fan would have taken. Of course, they're up by only one, so you would have wanted a little bit more. But if you made it a game, I think you would have said, hey, Tennessee's got a good shot at this. So Georgia has the ball to start the fourth quarter. They go down, they get close, but they can't convert on a third down. So Kirby takes the points. Peyton Woodring drills it right through. the uprights, and Georgia goes up by 2. And at this point, it kind of gets that feeling that you had early in the game where, hey, like, yeah, points are great. We need to score every drive. But we can't trade field goals for touchdowns here with Tennessee. And Tennessee is going to score touchdowns. And just as if they were going to make my point, Aguilar, again, finds Braden Staley and just wide open over the middle. And that's it. Tennessee takes the lead, 35-30 over Georgia. And to make matters worse for Georgia, this is where it felt like early in the Kirby Smart run where Georgia might turn into a pumpkin against a team like Alabama. And Georgia, for their part, goes 3 and out, has to punt. And that is when the defense makes a fantastic stop. Tennessee is driving, and they've been able to do what they want all game long, it felt like. Even besides this, like, about 10 minutes of game time in the second and third quarter where Tennessee just couldn't get anything going offensively. Tennessee really had their way with Georgia's defense in this one. But Georgia's credit, they held on a 3rd down here. They forced a field goal. Tennessee's up by 8. Gunner gets the ball, having 2 scored touchdowns and a 2-point conversion. And you're on the Tennessee 29, 30-yard line or so. Can't convert. It's 4th and 5, 4th and 6. And you have to score a touchdown. You know you're not going to be able to turn the ball over on Tennessee. They're not going to stop them in 3 plays. So it's either score here or Tennessee's going to run the clock out. And Gunner Stockton delivers one of the best balls of his college career up to this point, probably the best ball of his college career up to this point. That is a pass that gets you into conversations like the Heisman and first-round draft pick. We're not willing to talk about that. I think Gunner's going to stay at least another year. But that is what it is. That is what makes you an elite quarterback at the college level. The ability to make that throw in that situation is exactly what Georgia needed. And after a 2-point conversion that is successful, we're tied at 38. Give the ball right back to Tennessee. And like I said, Tennessee, if Gunner Stockton was not able to convert, would have just ran the clock out. And that's basically what they did. They were able to move the ball. If you gave them 3 downs, they were going to get a first down. And Georgia's defense preventing anything over the top. Nothing, no long passes. But Tennessee is willing to nickel and dime you to death if given the opportunity. And that's what makes this this offense for Tennessee really, really hard to stop. And Georgia, to their credit, didn't give up a long touchdown. But they didn't have to give up a touchdown. Tennessee only needed 3. So they send out Max Gilbert. And I feel bad for this kid because this game is not on him. He should have made the field goal. Yes, Tennessee should have won. However, that situation has so much pressure on it. He was good the entire rest of the game. And he just blows it. There's no other explanation. Iced by his own head coach in that situation with the delayed game call. And he just misses the biggest field goal of his life up to this point. He'll get another shot at it, though, later. Don't worry. So we go to overtime. Every Georgia fan and player and coach is feeling like, hey, you just gave me an extra life. You made a mistake. You could have killed me. You had me on the ground, knife to my throat, and you didn't thrust forward and end it. And Tennessee, I mean, you could feel the energy in that stadium was just dejected. It was loud all day long, and it just wasn't loud or as loud anymore. There was a bit of, you could feel that pain in that stadium of, oh no, not again. I've been in stadiums like that as a Falcons fan, as a Georgia fan, where you can just feel it unraveling. And you still want your team to win. They still have a chance to win, but you know in your heart of hearts, you've already blown the game. And that's how it felt in Neyland Stadium for overtime. Georgia forces a 3-and-out on the opposing when Tennessee gets the ball first in this one. Aguilar had to scramble around, almost got sacked a number of times, has to throw it away, nearly picked. Gilbert drains a field goal to give Tennessee the lead. But when Georgia got the ball back, well, that was all there was. Georgia ran it down their throat twice. It really looked like how Georgia treated that Oklahoma double overtime Rose Bowl game a few years ago, where after blocking the field goal from Oklahoma, and all you need is 3, Georgia smelt blood in the water. Sony Michel breaks left, scores. And that's about how it felt to have this one. Josh McCray, man. Just another incredible player. Frazier and McCray are a two-headed monster for this Georgia team. And they absolutely delivered when it mattered in overtime in this one. So Georgia has a week off. They get to go play Bama after that week off in Athens. And I think every Georgia fan is excited for that one because this Bama team, while it's proven it against Wisconsin and Louisiana Monroe, I think that there's a little bit of blood in the water, as we've talked about in this game. And Georgia is the absolute best team in the country at smelling that blood and capitalizing. So I'm really looking forward to that one in Athens, but that's not for another 2 weeks. So until then, we will talk about Georgia Tech. They beat the monster that has been Clemson, get the monkey off their back, and break a streak that's been going on since 2014. And in all honesty, you're going to hear a lot about what happened to Clemson, what's going on with Clemson. Dabo, today in his press conference, just spiraling, talked for over an hour in just what was an insane press conference. We might get into that a little bit later if I've got time. But Georgia Tech was the better team. And I don't think that was that unpredictable. If you've been paying attention to what Brent Key has been doing on the flats, the writing's been on the wall. He's been the best underdog head coach in college football, certainly in the ACC. His team has adopted this identity of we are being disrespected. And because of that, we are going to absolutely maul you to death. And that is personified no better than with their quarterback, and Haynes King, who might be the toughest quarterback I have ever seen play college football, at least since Tim Tebow. Just going to get it done. I don't care how much it hurts. I don't care how much it costs me. I am going to will my team down the field, and we are going to win this game. And I predicted the exact score. I predicted the way that Georgia Tech was going to win this game, with Haynes King leading a drive late to get his team into field goal range. And Clemson, just doesn't seem mentally tough to play this game. I've had a lot of the same questions about Clemson that I had about Alabama after the FSU game. Are they able to play one of these games where that it's just physical and the other team is trying to kill you? Because that's what Georgia Tech was doing to Clemson on Saturday. And Clemson, for their credit, I guess they stuck in this one, but they made a lot of mistakes. They didn't have that killer instinct that we're used to seeing out of the Clemson Tigers over the last decade, that we're used to seeing out of teams like Ohio State and Alabama. Those big three in the 14 college football playoff era. And Clemson didn't have it. I honestly thought that they were going to lose by a lot more in this game. Right up until the end of the second quarter. They were driving. But they had it 3rd and 22. They handed off to Randall, and Randall has an amazing run and picks it up all by himself. Up until that point, I thought they were dead. If he gets 10 yards, like whatever. I genuinely think that is what turned that play around for Clemson and gave them any life at all. Because before that, they were playing like a dead team walking. They didn't know how to react to what Georgia Tech was doing to them. Like, they watched the film. They knew that this was the MO of a Georgia Tech team. They watched what they did to Georgia. They watched how they played against Colorado when Georgia Tech themselves made every single mistake possible, and they still managed to come back and beat the Buffaloes in Colorado week 1. This is a team that doesn't go away and is just relentless. And Clemson wasn't prepared for that early on. I think that's just really easy to see. Cade Klubnik did not look good in this one. Threw a near pick six on his own, or in the red zone, and just made a lot of mistakes, missed open targets when they were there. He was on the ground several times in this one. But what a win for Georgia Tech. And now Georgia Tech, if you start to look at their schedule, I mean, this is what separates Georgia Tech from some of the bigger brands and like teams that a lot of other people had circled going into the season. And I'll be honest, I had Georgia Tech in the playoff because I really like the makeup and the identity of their team, but I don't know what their ceiling beyond that is. And the fact that their ceiling is limited by the amount of talent on the roster means that they are more prone to screwing up against a team they're favored by 17-21 against. Because they have an off day. They don't have the talent necessarily to make up for it. And this is a team that is built on 100% effort and grit and physicality. And if one of those just doesn't show up one day, if Haynes King can't go or can't run for 100 yards, then maybe that makes Georgia Tech vulnerable down the road. But right now, that's why they're winning games. They can run the ball down your throat. Haynes King is the real deal. He should be leading Heisman conversations. And I don't really understand why he's not in that conversation as much. Because I don't think that there is a single player more important to his team winning than Haynes King is to Georgia Tech right now. So, I look forward to what we get to see out of Tech. They'll be favored in every single game until they play Georgia in Mercedes-Benz on Black Friday, which I looked at tickets for that game. Oh my goodness, it's $255 just to get in the door when I last looked. So I am going to be watching that one on TV. But, can't look past any opponent for Georgia Tech. But if you're a Georgia Tech fan, I don't know how you can be anything other than excited after watching how your team has looked after the first 3 games, wins over Colorado and Clemson. And yes, both of those teams are now 1-2, but one of those 2 losses for both of those teams is to Georgia Tech. I don't understand how you can rag on a team for losing and you beat a team that has lost games. Yeah, cool, because I beat them. Like, that was what the ESPN article said yesterday when I read it, is Georgia Tech can't be that good because the teams they beat have also lost. Yes, because I beat the teams that I played. That's why they lost. Anyways, I'm a Georgia fan. I shouldn't be defending Georgia Tech the way I am, but I think that they're a good team. And I really look forward to playing them, and I really hope for everyone's sake, just for how fun it would be. Imagine both those teams being undefeated or with 1 loss going into Black Friday. Like, doesn't have any conference ramifications, but just that rivalry is really fun when both teams are good, and it's been too long since both teams have been really good. So, we'll finish talking about Georgia Tech and all that, but we're going to move on to Texas A&M and Notre Dame. The Aggies go into South Bend and get a ranked win for the first time in forever. And they couldn't have done it in just more spectacular fashion. Marcel Reed, I said on TikTok that Marcel Reed was going to have a statement game, that this was going to be his coming out party, and added an immunity, because I do watch Josh Pate. I enjoy a little bit of immunity from time to time. And he did. the Texas A&M offense looked unstoppable. But so did Notre Dame's, and I don't think that that's what anyone thought coming into it, that that was even possible. Like, yes, Notre Dame's defense got exposed against Miami, but looking at what Miami has done since then, I don't think that that is really all that surprising. But Texas A&M, a team that was made to run the ball down your throat, and suddenly they're able to pass the ball all over the yard. And Notre Dame, C.J. Carr, in his second start, his first start in South Bend, and he looks fantastic. You might have another guy if you're Marcus Freeman, but unfortunately you're 0-2 when your quarterback, your young quarterback, has played every bit well enough to have you 2-0 in one of the top 5 teams in the country. It's unfortunate. But for Texas A&M, suddenly your entire season's ahead of you. I picked A&M to win this game. I wasn't super confident in it. I did not foresee it going like this. There's going to be so much to talk about in terms of just the dropped snap and the dropped hold at the end of this game for Notre Dame, but I don't think that's worth focusing on. Your defense let you down if you're Notre Dame, and that's something that they have to correct, especially going into a schedule that is going to pass the ball on you. Notre Dame, that's been their identity in terms of players they send to the NFL. It's a ton of offensive linemen and it's a ton of DBs. And right now, I'm not seeing that identity out of the Fighting Irish. And so time will tell. A week 2 bye is a little bit unfortunate for a team that has some things to clean up on the back end of that defense, but we'll see going forward. Just an aside, though, how in the world are they ranked in the top 25? Like, yes, I know Miami's good. I know A&M is good. Notre Dame lost both times. Like, they're 0-2, and they're ranked in the top 25. Just, that's awful. Like, yes, they are going to get back into the top 25 if they do what they're supposed to do, but they were favored in both of these matchups. If they were going to do what they were supposed to do, they'd be 2-0. So we can't judge a team based on what we think they're going to do in the future. We can't rank them based on that. Anyways, Notre Dame should be unranked. They would get back, but because, people are stupid, they are still ranked at 0-2. For Mike Elko and the Aggies, though, what a signature win. Just absolutely went into South Bend. You get handed the ball down 6 with a minute and a half to go, and Marcel Reed just brings you right down the field, scores a touchdown for you. Just absolutely everything that you've been searching for in a quarterback there. And this is a team, just to remind you, this is a university that had Kyler Murray and Haynes King, and neither of them looked particularly good. This might be the Aggies, the best offense the Aggies have had since Johnny Manziel was in there. But like we said, very early. I'm looking forward to what Texas A&M is going to accomplish, but what a wonderful game. And this is the type of game that Texas A&M has lost in the last decade, ever since they joined the SEC. They've not been able to really pull off these games where it's a classic. And you're like, oh, wow, what a game. Too bad, A&M couldn't pull it out again, but it was fun to watch. And that's not what they're saying this weekend in College Station. They're saying, hey, we won one. What does that mean going forward for the Aggies? And I don't know, but we will find out pretty shortly. Moving on now to pro football. The Atlanta Falcons got it done against the Minnesota Vikings on primetime Sunday Night Football by a score of 22-6. I was going to say 24-6 because that makes more sense as a normal football score. But if you actually watch this game, this didn't feel like a normal football game. And I'll explain why. Starting off, the biggest thing I want to harp on, the defense. Oh my goodness. If there's ever been a let Terry cook moment, it was this game. Every single rookie that he has drafted decided to have a moment in this one. So, Billy Bowman Jr. all over the place. He had one pick, almost had 2. Fooled me on the original on live action. Obviously, on the replay, he dropped it. But unbelievable interception on the sideline, just bouncing right up into his head, stated bounds, and that gave the Falcons offense really good field position. Both Jalen Walker and James Pierce Jr. got sacks in this game. The offseason moves of Divine Diablo and Leonard Floyd, both of those are paying off so far. With both of them got really involved. Xavier Watts, he had a pick to seal this one, and he was all over the place as well. That's game number 2 that we've said Xavier Watts quite a bit, and for good reason. If there is something that didn't go well for the Falcons in this game, it is the red zone offense. So the Falcons could move the ball pretty reliably between the 20s. But once they got into about 20, 25, 30 for the Vikings, the entire offense just froze up. I don't know if that was because Zach Robinson wasn't getting the play call into Michael Penix in time. We noticed several times that the play call, the Falcons didn't break huddle till 10 seconds to go on the play clock. Penix doesn't have time to read the defense, and that is a Brian Flores defense. So you know there's probably going to be pressure, but where is it coming from is always going to be the question. Penix never really had time to read the defense pre-snap to shift his offense the way that we know he is capable of doing. Never really got to see much of that, but at the end of the day, when Bijan Robinson runs for 170 yards, you don't really need Penix to do much. And Penix, as much as I love his arm, I love a lot of the things he does pre-snap. This one he didn't do too much, and it was very much a good thing. That is a game that a quarterback like Jameis Winston might have found a way to lose. And there's nothing wrong with being a game manager when your team is set up to win. And we know that Penix is more than a game manager. Look at his first 4 starts. Led drives to score or go ahead or tie the game in clutch time in pretty much all of them. I'm not worried about Penix at all. This is his first big boy start on the road, or at least the first big start on the road this season in front of a Vikings fan base that was very excited about J.J. McCarthy and this team coming into it, was very loud. It was a home opener for the Vikings, and the Falcons went in to U.S. Bank Stadium and emerged with a win. That's the biggest thing. Gets a dub in the win column. Dub in the win column. Very, very common phrase there to use. But that's the biggest thing. After how last week went, where you feel like you deserve to win that game, and Younghoe Koo just shanks one as time expires. Just get in the win column, get ready for Carolina next week, and don't underestimate them. That's the biggest thing I can say as a Falcons fan. Everyone now has the Falcons on their radar, especially the defense. And while I think the offense has a lot to improve on, I think that they're going to look way better against Carolina. But that being said, you can't look over anyone in this league, even the Carolina Panthers. So that's what happened this weekend with the Falcons. Let's move to the high banks of Bristol Motor Speedway. Christopher Bell completes the Joe Gibbs Racing sweep in the round of 16 at Bristol. And I got to be honest, I knew Toyota was going to be dominant in these playoffs. I didn't see them sweeping the first 3, especially at a track like Bristol, which has been typically a very, very competitive venue. And while a Toyota did not dominate tonight, Bell capitalized when it mattered. And if there's anything that I've learned watching NASCAR and listening to what the sanctioning body has to say, that's all that matters in the end in this sport in the big 2025. About the race itself, though, a lot of comers and goers couldn't go 30 laps on a single tire run at times in this one. I really, really liked what Goodyear brought with the softer right side tires. I think it made this race very interesting to watch. It really, really reminded me of what Bristol was when I was growing up, when I was really watching the sport every Sunday, back before I lost interest, and now that I'm coming back to the sport, I'm glad to see Bristol at least resembling, at least for once this um, last few years, resembling the Bristol that I looked forward to every season for this Bristol night race. And I haven't been able to say that in a while. This is the first Bristol night race in forever that has felt like what the Bristol night race was in the early 2000s. Um, but yeah, lots of covers and goers, lots of good storylines. Alex Bowman was the only guy below the cut line who really made any sort of leap towards the cut line. He was reeling in Austin Cindric and Chase Elliott towards the end of this, but he just couldn't get the strategy didn't fall the correct way for him, and he wasn't able to snag that win. And the round of 16, I mean, it really is just about not shooting yourself in the foot, and Bowman could not do that for 2 races. And of course, Barry was eliminated. He finished last in every single race this round. That's just tough for the 21 team. For SVG, this was always going to be a tough round for him to get through. I picked him to move on, but that might have been a little bit of optimism from my point of view, as I really enjoy watching SVG race. But he got 2 very difficult ovals and Gateway where he's never raced before. So it was not a good track selection this round for SVG. Even though if he had made it to the next round, then I think we could all be like, oh, well, he's making the round of 8 because he's probably going to win the Roval. Austin Dillon, the other car eliminated, he just didn't have it tonight. And really, none of them did besides Bowman. So that moves us to the round of 12, which I will be breaking down probably on TikTok most later. But very exciting race. The only thing I would say is I think there were a few too many caution laps. While I just don't understand why you need to run that amount of caution laps for the amount of cautions we got. Maybe that's just something we can clean up in the future. But if the on-field racing product is okay, I'm fine waiting a little bit, waiting through some caution laps to get those green flag laps that are more interesting than what we've seen at Bristol the past few times we've come here with this next gen. So, and that's going to wrap up our show today. I was planning on maybe doing the preview portion of this as well, but most likely those will be on my TikTok, which I'll link below, and I'll probably put them out as YouTube shorts as well. Let me know what you thought of this new format, probably combining everything that I find interesting into one show rather than a bunch of little videos. I think it's just easier for me to edit. This way I can actually just get them all done in one day or so and just make it work. So let me know what you think down below. Make sure, if any remarks, helpful or otherwise, I would like to hear them. So anyways, guys, I hope to see you next time, and thanks for watching.